Hello everyone, and welcome to our very first podcast story, the first of many. Today, I will be traveling with you to one of the most beautiful places in Tunisia, the city of Tataouine, Chneni village to be exact. You probably have watched Star Wars, and if you're a big fan, then you're lucky today, because this story occurred at the very same city where the movie was filmed. The Seven Sleepers, or what known as the Sleepers of Ephesus and Companions of the Caves according to the medieval legend. The story had a long-lasting popularity among Muslims and Christians during the Middle Ages. However, of course, we live to proclaim from the housetops. Numerous countries around the world had similar if not the same story as the one that Tataouine have. Naming Jordan, Amman, Turkey, Iraq, even India. Yet, if the story is one that tends research and excavation, then the village of Chneni is rich with tales and myths that distinguish it from any other region in the world. So back to the case. It is located in the northern side of Mount Chneni, and its opening points to the north, so that when the sun rises it curves around and do not enter, and when it sets it turns away from it and do not hit it. Villagers argued about the location of this cave, and it became almost impossible to prove the conformity of it. However, the story that is circulating in the region talks about an ancient incident in history that is very similar to what was reported in the story of the Seven Sleepers to a large extent, and perhaps from the presence of the remains of the Romans in the Farge village, known as Dikianos, that led villagers to believe that the story corresponds to this place. The cave exists in the western side of a mountain that holds a small village filled with historical monuments, linked with several other old villages. These villages stand as proof to the age of human existence in these regions, and up until this moment, the architecture of Chneni remained a witness to the lifestyle of its villagers, with a lofty palace that is prepared for storage, sitting on the top of a mountain, lined with hundreds of rooms in a beautiful harmony. Its windows and doors open far and wide to a foothill, and under the palace there exist many groves carved in the rocks to form a node of dwellings for the villagers to take homes of. And according to what people say, the villagers chose to live facing the sun at sunset for a wisdom they know of. The elders are proud that the village Chneni is the oldest and most authentic in the region, and they claim that the Dwirat village was established by one of their residents that left Chneni and built a house there. Then he traveled somewhere else, and when he came back, he found that many other houses were built in that region. The legend talks, the man kept looking for his house, saying, "The house became houses," and that's where the naming of the place is originated from. Dwirat means houses. Annually, at every October, a festival occurs where a black bull is sacrificed by the residents and then taken to the shrines of the saints on the road leading to the graves of the Seven Sleepers, where they pray God for the rain. However, it is said that this traditional festival wasn't originally to pray God for rain, but because a man slaughtered a girl in that place on a bridge that is now known under the name the Bridge of the Slaughtered, and that the man fled to the mosque of the Seven Sleepers to hide in. Then he was found and killed by the girl's family, and when the elders of the village found out about it, they advised them to slaughter a black bull and sacrifice it to the shrines as a penance to their sins. But over the time, it became an annual festival to pray for rain. The mosque is in the northern side of the cave, and it is still standing nowadays, On its posing carved some letters in Hindu that indicated the dates of the restoration and the names in Arabic of those who restored it. But also, there exist other writings, some of which faded away, and drawings that hold meaning and connotation that remain a mystery. The legend goes on that a long time ago in this place there was once existed a man of knowledge holding a book, piercing his eyes into people's faces as if he was looking for something or someone, until his eyes fell on someone named Tikianos. He kept looking at him, then returned to his book, then to him again, and after a while he spoke to him and made him swear to keep his safety if he told him a great secret. Tikianos agreed, and the man informed him that his book of knowledge spoke about a man on his land that is going to hold a great fortune, and that features of the man from his book apply to him completely. The man said to Tikianos, "If you agree to make me your personal counselor, then I will help you find the treasure and become a king." Tikianos agreed, of course, and promised him to grant his wishes. Then the man took him to a certain place and started reading some spells from his book, and suddenly the earth cracked and opened to an almost magical city, in which he entered, taking Tikianos by the hand, showing him every corner, room, and corridor of the place, where the gold, money, and jewels exist. He handed him all the keys of this place and taught him their secrets that he found in his book. Tikianos felt overwhelmed by this great gift, and he thanked the man for his offering. However, his mind was roaming somewhere else. His greed knows no bounds, and went by his malicious imagination to what his treasure and his fortune would make of him: royalty, wealth, and followers. He took his sword and cut the poor man's throat. Then after, he extorted all the gold and treasure he found, established his own kingdom by recruiting all kinds of workers. Then he built an army and announced himself to be a king. Then he declared his lordship to be feared and worshipped by all the people, and those who disagreed would be executed. A group of believers who worshipped God refused him and tried to convince people to not believe in what he says and claims. Among those who opposed him, a man called Tamlicha. He spoke to some of his friends about a plan he thought about to try to his king, who claims his lordship, to confirm whether he fears people a neighbor king or not. He went to Tikianos pretending to be shaken in terror from some news he heard about the king of the neighbor city. He claimed that their king is preparing for a war on Tikianos and his people. Tikianos panicked when he heard the man's speech and fell unconscious from fear. That was a testimony to the weakness and timidity of the king. How could he be afraid if he was a god as he claims? Tamlicha took advantage of that moment to gather men and resist with the unjust king. However, the man's plot reached the king, and he ordered his imprisonment and those with him from his very few followers. Tamlicha and his men remained imprisoned for a good period of time, during which Tamlicha was thinking of a ploy to escape the prison, until one day, a day of a celebration held by a ruthless king, where he sits and watches lions wrestling with those sentenced to death, plus other games where prisoners volunteer to play in front of the king as entertainment, hoping to be released from prison. Tamlicha got into a group and prepared a game to the king with a ball. The game is now known as the hockey game. Back then, no one but Tamlicha knew about the game and its rules. And on the day of the celebration, Tamlicha and its companions started presenting the game in front of the king. Then one of the players threw the ball far away, and all the players followed. and then went out of sight. At first, the King Decianus thought it was part of the game, but time passed and none of the men returned. So he got on their wicked plan and sent guards after them, but it was too late. The prisoners fled without a trace. On their way to escape, they came across a shepherd with his dog. The shepherd asked about their direction, so they told him the truth, that they were escaping the king's prison seeking a shelter. The shepherd, like the prisons, is also a believer in God, so he told him he would help them, but they have to wait for him to take the cattle back to its owners. They did, and after a while, the man returned and took them to a cave far from the mountainside. The escapees noticed that the shepherd dog was following them. They were against it. They feared that it might make noise and expose their hidden spot. So they started throwing him with stones, hoping to frighten him. Yet the dog didn't leave his owner's side. Then the shepherd told them that this dog is also a believer and that he prays when he sees him praying. There is no point of hitting him. But the prisoners ignored that and kept on hitting him to the extent of injuring him badly. Suddenly, the dog spoke and uttered some words, and blamed them for his pain and ordered them to stop immediately. All the men were surprised and stopped right away. They couldn't move an inch, and accepted the dog with them, and entered the cave. While they were hiding, they felt overwhelmed by drowsiness, so they slept and kept sleeping for 309 years. The cavemen continued their slumber until the day of the resurrection. They woke up as hungry as a bear, looking around for something to eat, and all they found was a water bladder that tasted as fresh as ever. They told one of them to go down to the village and bring them some food, but to be very cautious from the king's guards. He took what he could collect of money and hit the road to the village. But upon arrival, he was open-mouthed to what his eyes were witnessing of a sudden change to the village. He ignored it all because his hungry stomach was louder than any thought in his mind, and went looking for food to buy some. The owner of the shop told him that his money is too old, and asked him whether he has found a treasure hidden somewhere. The man was dazed and kept trying to convince the merchant that the money is his. They went on in an argument, and the guards noticed the loud voices. They took the man to their king, and the king asked him for the source of the money. But the strange man kept saying that the man is his, and that he is one of the villages, and that he has a house nearby. The king sent his guards with the man to show them his house, and pointed out to one. However, when they knocked on the doors, another man came out and denied the story, saying that he is the only owner of the house. The strange man insisted on his possession of the house and asked if he could go inside and bring them a proof of what he was claiming. The guards agreed, and after a while the man came out with a wooden stick with his name engraved in it that he placed in a corner of the house. The guards were confused, and they escorted the strange man back to the king, where this latter asked him to tell him the full story, and so he did. The king felt overwhelmed by what his ears were hearing, and he told the man that the former king Decianus died a long time ago, and that the villagers and their king are now all believers. The strange man felt more relieved by the news and asked to go back to his friends and tell them about everything. The king agreed, but over one condition, that is to go with him and his god to meet with his friends. After a while, and upon arrival, the strange man told the god that he needs to go in first and prepare his friends to the shocking news. However, while the strange man is gone looking for food, His friends assigned one of them to go up in the mountain and watch if anyone go in their direction. And when he saw his companion returning with a large group of men, he was terrified and jumped from the top of the mountain and crossed the entire distance to the cave with only 3 steps. The legend tells that the guards and their king remained waiting in front of the cave for the men to come up for a long period of time, until they decided to go inside and look through. But when they did, no one was inside. It was as if they all have vanished from earth. And in another resource, it is said that the guards found the cavemen lying down on the floor, so they thought they were dead. So the king decided to build a temple over their bodies in which God would be worshipped. Then the temple became a mosque when the Islamic religion came. And now, my dears, this is the story of the 7 sleepers. See you next time. The end.